Hello, everyone. Today I'm sitting down with a recruitment manager at the Center for Addiction and Mental Health, better known as CAMH, and two grads who currently work there to get a closer look at the hiring process, at how someone can prepare themselves for opportunities, and why it's a great place to work. Before I introduce the panel, I want to say that CAMH has been a strong supporter of our programs at George Brown College by hosting students in field placements as well as hiring our graduates. Currently, according to the latest George Brown College Top Partnership Report, there are 62 grads working at CAMH. So not bad, and glad to see a healthy number of grads contributing their skills and knowledge to the organization. Some of the job titles that you might want to know that are out there at CAMH that our grads are currently holding are counselor, environmental services supervisor, peer support worker, people coordinator, HR analyst, behavior therapist, clinical operations coordination leader, registered practical nurse, and recreational therapist, just to name a few. So it seems like there's a place for many of the grads coming out of our various study programs. On the panel today, we have Catherine Money, Recruitment Manager. We have graduate Nadia Stanichevsky, Health Records Analyst, and graduate Leo Edwards, Senior Diversity and Equity Consultant. Welcome and thank you for joining us today.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, so let's get started. And I want to start with Catherine. Can you tell us a little bit about CAMH and the department you work within?
Sure. So first of all, I'm really excited to be here today. So thank you very much for this opportunity. A little bit about CAMH. We are the largest mental health hospital in all of Canada. We're also one of the leading research institutions as it relates to mental health in the world. There's about 3,000 staff, and that includes our doctors, our allied staff, our research staff, our nurses, and our support staff. We see about 34,000 patients annually. And one of our key drivers at CAMH is to be innovative and to really change the way that people think about mental health. We want to change the way that healthcare providers think about mental health and the way they do their work, but we also are really committed to making change within political and government levels and organizations in terms of how mental health is viewed.
Okay, that sounds great. And I've heard these new initiatives that are happening at CAMH and a really different way of looking at things. And I think I'm going to stick with you for the next question as well. Catherine, can you share with us the hiring process at CAMH and elaborate on some of the jobs that the organization recruits for?
Sure. So the hiring process at CAMH is set forth for us by our unions. So we're a unionized environment,
Mhm.
and the collective agreements outline for us how the process works. So once we go through an internal process, if we have no successful candidates, then we look at our external candidates. So what we do is we post positions on our website and invite applications into the system for any interested parties. We have a standardized interview process whereby we ask candidates all the same questions on a rotational basis. We have a panel interview, so candidates would be meeting with a number of individuals, not just one individual. And we ask questions as it relates to the jobs and the qualifications and the duties and responsibilities of those roles. And most importantly, I think one of the things that I wanted to highlight is the value of soft skills and really how important they are to our organization.
Mm-hmm. And I know that there's the usual recruitment process, which is there tends to be the website, and you go on, you see the jobs, and you do that. What about the opportunities that might come out of volunteering or being involved in some other way with CAMH?
Sure. So there's definitely opportunities to make lots of connections into CAMH. Volunteering is a key one, as well as clinical placements or job placement or school placements.
Mm-hmm,
Um,
mm-hmm.
those are opportunities that really help connect individuals to the organization, but also help to show them what options are available in terms of opportunities,
Hmm.
and really demonstrate what people might be interested in actually doing at our organization.
Yeah, it is a wonderful way to sort of understand an organization and see the different levels. So volunteering is a great way to sort of feel things out and see if it's where you think you might be suitable for the opportunities that are available. So thank you for that. Nadia, what about you? Tell us about what you do at CAMH and the hiring experience that you had, and how George Brown College prepared you for success at CAMH.
Yeah, so as previously mentioned, my position is called a health records analyst. So I work in the health records department underneath the information management group umbrella. In some other hospitals, it's pretty similar. It would be called the health records department. So what I'm primarily responsible for is basically scanning, uploading all the documentation done by clinicians. I'm ensuring the accuracy of these documents. Catching errors is a very big part of my job. That's the analyst part. Paying attention, making sure that privacy is being ensured for every single patient. Quality and the long-term goal is, or the goal in the end is for all clinicians to be able to do their job smoothly and properly. So that's always what I'm thinking when I'm doing my job. I also assist with processing mental health act forms, which are really a big thing here at CAMH. So I assist with that documentation, which is the important legal aspect of patients being admitted. Um, I also help with distributing any of this documentation to external sources. So very commonly, people are referred by their family doctor to CAMH. So I ensure that the documentation gets back to that doctor quickly, the whole, whatever they're requesting, and it's sent quickly, and so that the continuation of care can continue without any delay, because we know that waiting nowadays for healthcare is an issue. So I always try and ensure that it's done as quickly as possible so patients aren't waiting. I also help with submitting census data to the Ministry of Health. That's also a big part of what the Health Records Department does, collecting data, submitting data, making sure the ministry is aware of all the wonderful things CAMH is doing, how many people they're helping. We send in all sorts of data. There are coders in our department as well who help with all this collection of data so that the ministry is aware of all the things that are happening, how many people we're helping. And I also help ensure at the end that all the inpatient units, because primarily my responsibility is inpatient. There are others who are responsible for outpatient and other services, but my goal is to make sure that inpatient units are keeping up with CAMH's HIMSS Level 7 designation. We are one of the few institutions in the country who have this designation, and basically what it means is that we are near paperless, which is something I'm really proud to work at CAMH and have this designation. So we are near paperless, and we want to keep it that way. And it's easy to stray off and start doing everything on paper. So we make sure that we stay and have this proud designation that we have. So, and the hiring experience, it was very smooth. It was all done virtually, I guess, kind of unfortunately, just it was smack dab in the middle of the pandemic. But I was really impressed with just how quick and smooth it was. It was done all, I think, in like a 2-week period. It was pretty quick.
That's good.
And the onboarding was very easy to follow. And yeah, George Brown really, really helped with preparing me for my success. I mean, there were transition to workplace courses. There are the career services that help with my resume. I had 2 placements, and the instructors were wonderful. They were people who were currently working in the field. So that was just great to have.
Hmm. And that makes a big difference, doesn't it? When you've got someone who actually is on the ground and really understands what's happening, they're going to be able to be super current in teaching you what's happening at the time, right? What's currently going on. So that is great. And where did you do your placements? Did you do it at CAMH, one of them, or?
Unfortunately not, no. My first one was at Scarborough General. My second one was at Ontario Health, which was very interesting.
Yeah, okay, good. And so that got you ready because it sounds like you've got a lot on your plate with all the forms and having to get all of that organized and make sure that they're properly sent out to the government and all of that. So really
Yes.
essential work. So that's great. Leo, how about you? Can you share your story about your journey to CAMH, what you do in your role, and what you enjoy most about the work you do?
Absolutely. But before I get into that, I'm super excited to be here.
Oh, great.
George Brown is where it all began for me in Canada in terms of my education, the amazing community work program. Some of the best professors I've met across the trajectory of my education was at George Brown. So it is absolutely, at least in my opinion, the best college experience anyone can have.
Yay, I like to hear that.
Yeah,
That's
and I
great.
truly mean it. I
Yeah,
felt at
good.
home, brand new to Canada, and it just felt like family and just so close and connected. It really, really
Mhm.
gave me the foundation that I needed to sort of skyrocket, so to speak.
That's fantastic. That's
So
great. Great to
my
hear.
yeah, my journey at CAMH has been about 10 years, and it has been quite a progressive career. I began at CAMH as a student while I was doing my undergrad placement at York in a program working specifically with folks from the African and Caribbean diaspora. So that was
Mhm.
a really amazing experience. And after the placement, because I felt so connected, felt so close to the work that they were doing at CAMH, I decided to apply to be a social worker and I got the job. And so for the next 6 or 7 years, I performed social work through outpatient and inpatient programs, quite a
Mhm.
few. And then I decided, social work is amazing, but I want to try my hands at something else to, I guess, a broader reach. And then I became the assistant manager in the Office of Health Equity. Health equity is also very near and dear to me as social work is. And I did that for about a year and a month. And more recently, I applied and got the senior equity and diversity consultant role, which is
Great.
quite amazing. And in this role, really, my responsibility is to ensure that there is support for staff, but as well for clients across CAMH, through the lens of equity and inclusion and diversity. I
Mhm.
think it is important because it can have an impact on clients' outcome. People want to feel a sense of belonging, a sense of safety, and a sense of being included, not only in their work that they're doing, but also in the supports that they receive across the hospital. So that's what I'm doing in that role to ensure that that is front and center and it's not about tokenism. And I can tell you at CAMH, we are performing critical inclusion, ensuring that people are included meaningfully and their ideas are considered. So that is what I do at CAMH, and it's quite an exciting role.
Well, it sounds great, and it is an important role, right? More so now than ever, I think, and it's great to see that conversation continues and that there's a real highlight in the work that you do on that sort of thing. So that's great. Now, you mentioned earlier, Catherine, about soft skills, right, and the importance of soft skills. And so when you're hiring, what are the key skills that you feel, those soft skills that make a difference in succeeding at the organization? And how do you identify them in potential employees?
Sure. So we're looking for people who are really passionate and dedicated and really want to fulfill the mandate of CAMH. And so that comes across in resumes in terms of previous work experiences, volunteer experiences, experiences working with clubs or organizations, volunteering, all of that sort of thing. Um, we would really encourage everyone to make sure that their resume does demonstrate their soft skills. And there's a way to do that in terms of making your document, although it's, a professional document, we don't necessarily want it to be so stuffy and formal that we don't get to see who the person really is.
Okay, that's good. And just how, there's that the resume, of course, where you see that's the first thing that probably comes across your desk. Do you take it a bit further and then go on to something like LinkedIn to get more of a 3D vision of the person? Do you use LinkedIn much?
We do use LinkedIn, but I would say that the other area that I would really encourage candidates to ensure that they're updating for every application is their cover letter. And so making sure that their cover letter is specific and unique to each position that they're applying for. And that allows them to demonstrate their soft skills, their transferable skills, and the skills that they have as they relate directly to what we're looking for.
Okay, that's good to know because I think I get a lot of questions about cover letters. Does HR still care about them? Do they still want to see them?
Mhm.
So it's interesting to know that that's something that is very pivotal to getting someone in for the interview then is how they come across in their cover letter. Good to know. Good to know. Um, Okay, Nadia, I wanted to ask you about, what do you enjoy most at working at CAMH, and what are some of the challenges as well that you experience, and how do you navigate around those?
Yeah, so what I love most, I mean, I really love what CAMH stands for. I love what their mission is, their vision about how they want to approach mental health care and what they see the future of mental health care looking like. And I think that's something that really aligns with what I hope the future of mental health care is.
Mhm.
And so I'm really proud to say that I work at CAMH, even though I may not be a clinician. I feel like I'm still part of providing the care for the patients, and I'm just really proud to be a part of that. And like mentioned previously, CAMH is something that's world renowned for their research, for all the work they do, for the groundbreaking things that they do. And so I'm just really proud to say that I work at CAMH, and also just from being a staff. I mean, I feel like it's we feel very like taken care of. I guess like you feel very like it's not just you come and do your job and then leave and then that's the end of the day. I feel like
Mhm.
there are so many opportunities for staff to contribute in other ways, and I feel like there we have many employee resource groups. If you have for all sorts of interests, there's I've joined the LGBTQ plus interest group. And we do things that are just like outside of our job description. I mean, we're all busy, but it's like we all care so much about what we do and about the patients and about other
Mhm.
staff that you can just tell that everyone who works here wants to do more and wants to help out more. So it's just you feel very supported, and I feel very proud to work at CAMH. So that's definitely what I love most. But of course, there are always, I guess, some challenges. One that I can think of, like I mentioned, I was hired in the middle of the pandemic, so that was a little bit different. It was new. I work just primarily on site. I don't work remotely, but
Mhm.
majority of people do. So I feel like at times that can be a little lonely, a little challenging. Um, but I just, there's less colleague interaction, and I feel like there can be days where you just really long for that. But of course, we
Mhm.
do meet virtually often, and there are a lot of things being done to try and like mitigate that and replace that interaction. But I mean, it's not 100% the same. So
Mhm.
there are some days where you do feel a little lonely.
Well, I wonder if that will change over the coming months where, more people will be coming on board and there'll be more sense of camaraderie in the workplace. It sounds like a really unique place to work, and I'm happy to hear that they do have these clubs that you could become a part of so you can share some common interests and get to know others that are working at CAMH. Leo, are you involved in any of those?
Yeah, absolutely. I'm also involved in the LGBT group as well as the ERG for Black staff. So
Uh-huh.
CAMH is an amazing place to work, or else I would not have been there for 10 years, to be quite frank.
Yeah, 10 years. Yeah, it's a good long time. You're right. Right? You're settled in.
Hmm.
I'm curious. I know that a lot of grads are always curious about the interview process, Leo. I was wondering if you could talk about your interview process. How did it go? How did you get ready for it? That kind of thing.
Yeah, that's a great question, and it's only recent. I think it's about what 6 months ago I interviewed for this current role that I'm in. So in terms of the interview process, like Catherine mentioned earlier, it was a panel. They were pleasant, which I think is important. They didn't come across cold and distant at all. So that made me feel, I guess a bit more comfortable, although I was familiar with some of the folks on the panel. Sometimes that's even more difficult, to be quite honest. So they took turns asking questions, and the questions really surrounded things around conflict resolution. There was a lot of questions as well around my people skill or soft skill abilities. There were questions around program development. And certainly because the role is around diversity and inclusion and equity, a lot of focus as well was on those key issues. Some of the questions were scenario-based questions that really give you an opportunity to think about real life events that can show up in the workspace. So that was really neat to engage with. How did I prepare? Um, I think it's important if someone isn't familiar with the company, the agency that they're applying to do thorough research. Again, I have been at CAMH, so I understand quite well the culture of CAMH, and I spoke to um, plans and programs and initiatives that I could have that I was aware of. So that was really neat to know. But as well in the interview, I anticipated questions that I can possibly be asked. So a part of my preparation was this anticipation of what they might ask based on what I've read in the job description. And so I made points to myself to sort of look to through the interview process to sort of guide my mind, or else I'll be all over the place. So that was really, really helpful. But I think more importantly, I understood the value that I bring to CAMH, and I understood my knowledge, my skill set, my abilities. And I really leaned into that and brought that over with confidence, not so much cockiness, but a confidence that I can contribute to the workplace culture and that I can uh, uh, be on this plan with CAMH to ensure that it is fair and just for everybody, regardless of where they're coming from. So that I thought was really helpful, knowing the value that I bring, as well as being quite familiar with the programs and initiatives, and really being able to connect with people. This role requires connection and being warm and open and so just really demonstrating that you have that ability. Certainly, there will be moments where there'll be difficult conversations and big emotions to hold, and so I think you have to as well demonstrate that you're able to work through things that may cause you to feel uncomfortable and hold big emotions. And I credit social work, education for the ability to hold some of those big emotions in conversations that can be difficult. So I think it's important to think about it not only from just trying to get a job, but really seeing how you contribute and fit, whether the job really aligns with your values and interests. And I think if it does, you would find that you are able to express and share in a way that feels comfortable for you.
I think you're so right around that. I mean, once you know a place, once you've got an organization in your sights, and you really want to be a part of what they do, it's really important to take a step back and figure out like why. What is it they're doing that really excites you? And then when you go into an interview, you can really bring that out and demonstrate why you want to be a part of what they're doing. I agree with bringing your value to the hiring table, where they want to know what kind of things can you bring to into the organization. What have you done in the past that demonstrated certain skills and abilities? So that's great to know. And I'm sure that Catherine would agree with that's what she's looking for when she interviews. Catherine, I don't know if you want to just jump in there a little bit around some of the things that you are looking for in the interview.
Sure. So I think Leo gave a great example of what you should do when you're getting ready for an interview. So make sure you do some reading about the organization, you do know the values of the organization, that they align with your values. we're really looking for people who are, as I've mentioned, who are passionate and engaged and excited about mental health. And yeah.
Okay, that's great. Now, Catherine, can you talk about some of the different career pathways that people can get onto? So, for example, Leo has been at CAMH for 10 years. I know that Nadia is kind of new, but where would people tend to go? What are the career pathways that have opened up for others?
Sure. So I will share that I've been with CAMH for over 20 years. And I've had 4 different roles in my career experience at CAMH. And Leo and I are not unique in terms of experiences of our staff. We really support lifelong learning and development and growth and encourage people to move around and get different opportunities and learn different things. So that is a really great aspect about CAMH. So people can, you know, make of it the experience that they want to have in terms of whether you're passionate about the role that you come into and that's the role you'd like to stay with. And then, as Nadia had said, getting involved through other ways like committees and employee resource groups and getting to share your talents and your skills that way in the organization.
All those things are so essential, right? And you build on skills. I mean, that's the whole point. Have a sense of, a bigger picture of where you want to take your career, what skills you want to build on and develop, and then you look for those opportunities in the organization, which is awesome. Nadia, what advice do you share with grads who are job searching currently and want to work either in the non-for-profit or specifically with CAMH?
Yeah, so I would say first, I feel like whenever, people get asked this question, I feel like it's always like, oh, I've heard that before. Everyone always says that. But I feel like from personal experience, some of these things are really so important. Like, they always say, don't lose hope, like be persistent and determined, but also be patient. It won't happen overnight, but at the same time, you just don't lose hope. Like just you have a passion and that passion will drive you. And, just keep looking, keep searching. My tip is always like set up email alerts with keywords. That was the one thing that helped me so much. So websites like Indeed, LinkedIn, they all have the feature to set up email alerts with a keyword. So any keyword, position, like a certain position you want, or just a certain department that you want, or just certain whatever, you set up that email, and so you'll get frequent emails with positions that match that. And I feel like that to me was the most helpful, because then even if you're having a day where you're busy, you're not actively searching for jobs, you'll get that email and you'll be like, oh, like I like this position, this sounds interesting, and then you go and look at and apply. So I feel like those email alerts are like my #1 tip. And also spend a little time on your LinkedIn profile. It's something that if someone were to Google your name, it's probably the first thing that would come up. So if you have one and it's kind of empty and bare right now, maybe spend a little time on that, just because if someone does decide to look for your name, that's what they'll see. So, and I know George Brown has loads of help for improving your LinkedIn profile. So definitely like use that. And also another tip is I would say search for a profile maybe on LinkedIn of somebody who has a job of something that you're interested in. I found that really helpful. Just look and see what is their background, what are they doing. Uh, LinkedIn has the option to reach out if you'd like, send a quick message. Everyone wants to help, and the worst that'll happen would just be like, no, sorry, I'm busy. But just try. Don't like I said, don't lose hope. Be determined. Don't lose your spark that created that passion that you want to continue in the career that you chose. So those are my tips. And just apply any interview, even if you don't get it. That's interview practice. That's great practice. All those questions that you have to answer in those interviews, even if you don't get it, and I've had jobs where I've done like multiple levels of interview, like more than one, which can be very stressful and in front of a panel. And didn't end up getting it, but all of that was just such good practice. That was like the first time I had multi-level interviewing, and I remember like I was like, you know what, I'm actually glad I went through that, because now I kind of know what that's like. So just keep trying, don't lose hope, and it's all
Well, those are
learning.
good points. Great points,
Yeah,
and it's true. Like get out there and try different, just throw yourself in. You can only get stronger in the experiences that you have with applying for
exactly.
jobs and interviewing, and you're going to be better for the next one, and it increases your chances of getting hired. I also love that you talked about LinkedIn, because I'm a huge fan of LinkedIn. The reason I like it is you can put stuff up there. Like, let's say you're not in a current job, but you can, LinkedIn is a place where you can add if you read something that was very cool and you think the world should know, or those that follow you on LinkedIn, put it on there. People will see that you're actively involved on LinkedIn and you've got something to say. So just because you're not working doesn't mean you don't have value, right? So you want to be using LinkedIn. And I see Leo he's nodding his head. What do you think about that? What would you also advise them to get LinkedIn up and running and
Oh, absolutely. I think LinkedIn is great. I think we're living in a global community. Everybody's quite connected, and LinkedIn is a way to get yourself in the space. You share your ideas, you share your politic. There may be someone who likes what you post and may have some influence in some agency, some corporation. So I think definitely LinkedIn is a great place. Often there are headhunters there, and I know this because a number of them had reached out to me from all kinds of industries, including education. I'm asking if I want to be interviewed and all of that. So LinkedIn is an amazing place, and it really gives an opportunity for a broader reach.
Absolutely. Do you have any other tips for grads, Leo, that you'd like to share with them?
Yeah, just to add to what Nadia stated when she mentioned being patient, that I think is quite critical. I recall when I graduated in April 2012 from UFT, I didn't get a job that I wanted until December of 2012 at CAMH. And fun fact, Catherine was one of the folks that interviewed me on that panel, and I reminded her not too long ago. She was very pleasant as well.
Mhm.
So I think being patient is really, really important, because you don't just want any job. You want a job that you feel connected to and that you feel that you can contribute to, and you bring value and they value what you give. And so I think being patient is really, really important. I think as well we have to be realistic and expect that there is competition. And so I think students should have the frame of mind that this is a very competitive industry. And so, what are my skill sets? While I'm out of school, are there ways to add to that skill set? I think it's really, really important. And as well, and I should have mentioned earlier, consider roles that are even temporary. When I started at CAMH, my role was not permanent. It was a temporary role. And look, I'm still at CAMH after 10 years. So I think consider temporary. It doesn't have to be permanent. It doesn't have to be full time right away, but it can certainly be good ways to get in and uh, um, and then you get on this trajectory.
Yeah, excellent points. Excellent points. And you're right. I think a lot of grads get nervous around, well, I can't take that job because I really need to be working full time, which is, I understand that, but sometimes you let really good opportunities escape you if you don't take some of those part-time or contract positions, because it's a way for people to see how you work, how you get along with people, all those soft skills that we talked about earlier. And they see you. So it's like this extension to an interview to see you on the ground working with people and how you come across. So that's great. And Catherine, I'm going to give you the last word on things because I'd love you to speak about, just broadly about the growth and trends in the non-for-profit sector. Where is it headed? I know coming out of COVID, we just did a sector spotlight on the non-for-profit, talking about how the sector's emerged out of COVID. How strong is the sector? And so that's really important to know. I think grads would be interested, and specifically a little bit around how CAMH has been impacted and how it's come through a very tough time and how they now are impacting the community.
Sure. So I think our sector has continued and will always continue to play an important role in society. Mental health, as well as just the healthcare sector in general was definitely impacted by COVID. We continue to move through that. Incredible staff and patients pivoting at short notice to make sure that new initiatives are inputted. We're constantly changing to meet the demands of the government and the requirements around COVID and that sort of thing. So it's a really interesting place to work too, because it's never dull. There's always something exciting happening, lots of different initiatives, lots of opportunities for growth.
Fantastic. Well, that is good to know. Well, our time is up, and I want to thank you, Catherine, Leo, and Nadia, very much for joining me today and sharing your thoughts, your experience, and advice to grads. I know they just find it remarkable that when they hear from companies, organizations, to share their experiences. So I really appreciate that, sharing that, why it's great to work at CAMH. It's an amazing organization, with a wonderful reputation. So thank you so much. Really appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Now, if there are any grads out there who continue to have questions or comments, I want you to feel free to just reach out to me, alumni@georgebrown.ca. I'd be happy to address any of your questions, any of your comments. Okay, everyone, take care and bye for now.